Let me share with you my own story, my own life story, because through that you can get a deeper understanding of the basics, of the ground of everything, and of the whole process. And you can learn a lot more. My journey of self-discovery, self-healing, and basically starting to find my own purpose started 15 years ago. 15 years ago, still, I had no clue that I can analyze and observe my thoughts and my emotions, and even more that I can work with them, that I can work on my own mood, that I can control my emotions and thoughts, that I can shift my life. And I was also unaware that all the chaos and drama from inside created my world outside. So the last 15 years, I mastered self-work, self-healing, and healing people. I also became a psychic, so I have a very deep and insightful experience about finding your true purpose. In my opinion, if you want to find your true purpose, you have to map yourself up on one hand, what you have, where you come from. Do a deep analysis of what your heritage is. What are your skills? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? And then also where you want to get, where you see yourself, but also look at the why and make this why you want to get there, why you want to become that person has to be clear enough, pure enough. Not a goal meant to please other people, not a goal that other people want you to have, but who is you? Who is the true you in this picture? I also do believe that finding your true purpose, you have to challenge yourself. You have to get out of your comfort zone. And every time your inner voice has a longing, has a desire to try out something, well, in my case, I always try to go with that and make that possible. And I will explain that more in detail in what way. So on one hand, I have built my own business because I wanted to see how this whole energy and mindset things works in the real world, works within a business. So I created a spiritual business, but that is a beauty salon, having employees, building up services, doing marketing, the whole branding, and then growing. It was very challenging that I became my own boss. But on the other side, there was also the healer, exploring techniques, still learning, growing, traveling, taking all sorts of trainings that I was curious about, but at the same time teaching and healing and exploring techniques and methods with people. I had to create my own method because the ones that I studied in the world outside and found with teachers and trainers were not effective and self-sufficient or practical enough for me. And I had so many blockages, so much trauma to process that it felt like it's endless. So I was like, I need to find something that works better. I need to find something that goes deep enough because I still felt stuck at deeper and deeper levels, but I just couldn't really see what's going on. So I had to go and find out. And just to make you understand where I come from and what was my luggage, I call it luggage, my heritage, that I had to be okay with, that I had to deal with, and I had to process and heal, I would summarize what I got in my childhood from my parents and what I grew up with. First of all, I come from abuse. My parents were physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. I wouldn't be able to tell sometimes which one was the worst because everything hurt. And when you're hurt physically, that causes PTSD whenever you're triggered with the same thing in your life as you grow up. And that's what PTSD roots from a lot of the times. Then you are abused mentally and emotionally, and that creates those tons of triggers and traumas and lack of self-esteem, lack of boundaries. You basically have to give up on yourself in order to survive your childhood. At least this was in my case. I had to completely submit to my parents' orders. I had no private space in my life. I was controlled in terms of time, in terms of my room, in terms of my friends, in terms of school. And mostly I had to work hard on the land, and my summer holidays were also about waking up early, dealing with the animals that we had at home, or going out on the land and doing the family stuff. We had to be one, working together. So basically, I had no chance to develop like art wise, which I would have loved to, or hang out with friends, or go to too many parties. Sometimes it happened, but my parents made sure that I always pay a huge price for that. And it felt like the good things always came with the punishment. They also made sure that I have no confidence, or at least I fight for trying to be good enough. For my parents, nothing was good enough. I could never be good enough. My father told me most of the times that I'm not gonna get anywhere. Nobody's gonna love me. I will be alone. No man would love me. I won't achieve anything and I would have no money. This is what I was brainwashed with. And when you are a small kid, even if you try to resist this information, but you are there vulnerable. I was a very sensitive child, so it was very hard to override this information as an adult, and it caused me a lot of problems, issues with self-esteem, with men, and with money and success. Growing up, I was the son of my father and the daughter of my mother. I had to do everything in the house, around the house, on the land, and I was the first help of my father because sometimes he couldn't get any other help. I got very strong, very resilient, but I hated that. I didn't really have the idea about what it feels like to be a woman, to be feminine. And this took me another 10 years to discover. And since I was in that problem so deeply, I made sure that I find out the absolute truth that I can be okay with. My mother was like a country woman, never wore any makeup, no heels, no style. I had mostly secondhand clothes. And in addition, I was a late child, so the taste of my parents was very old style. And when I was young, I couldn't see that from outside, so many of the times I was bullied because of how I was dressed up. Both of my parents were violent and abusive, so that made me become an empath. There was no way for me as a sensitive, heartfelt child to be strong. If I resisted them, I was getting beaten even more. So my strategy was to be the victim, to cry it out, to drain their aggression. And that's how I was conditioned as an adult to drain the negative energy of the people. And a lot of negative and evil people found me. So it was a lot of work to get myself out of there. My parents had a very strong slave mindset. So my parents were born in the 40s, which means that they have been through the Second World War, and then they have been through very tough times, and sometimes their families lost everything. The state took it away and they had to work as slaves. So they basically learned that they have no control over their life. Anytime anything could happen. They also learned that money can lose its worth anytime. So they were always crazy about buying something, investing money into land. Now, for me, starting my own business, having the slave mindset, also that I have to work very, very, very hard for money, it was very hard to have my own business. And there was a lot to work on so that I don't go bankrupt. Then as a child, I had my pocket money, but many of the times my mother took it. So basically as a child, I was conditioned that I have no control upon my own money. Besides that, my father always told me that I wouldn't have any money and I would have to rely on them the rest of my life, that I'm unworthy and I'm incapable of anything. Besides that, my family lost a lot of fortune back to generations. So this created lack of being able to control money and having tons of money issues. And if I didn't have my method, my business would have gone bankrupt several times because of my money issues. There were the issues with my abusive father, who wasn't able to express love and could get violent whenever he lost control. which created this distance and issues with strong men in my life. And this is why I chose a feminine husband as a masculine woman. But after divorce, I wanted to change the pattern, and it took me another 9 years to step into my feminine and be able to cope with a masculine man and be the woman next to him. As I already mentioned, I was a sort of a scapegoat of the family, which meant most of the things were my fault. I was the one beaten. I was the one abused mentally, emotionally. So my strategy was to have control and to survive in such an abusive environment, draining negative energy of other people and submitting myself to them, which again didn't help me with doing my business where I had to lead. And also it ruined my attraction because I was mostly surrounded with the wrong people who would take advantage of me and with whom I would lose my boundaries, who were dominant, who would drain my energy. On the other side, this also created this sacrifice in me, that I'm the sacrifice and I have to sacrifice myself. And this helped me with my life purpose, but still it was a lot of work to do to balance this part of me. What do I sacrifice and to what extent? Because sometimes I went too far and I put myself in danger. Not too long ago, a few years before my mother died, it turned out that she was schizophrenic, bipolar, narcissistic with borderline syndrome. I was more aware of these, but she was also hospitalized in the psychiatry unit. She basically went insane. And then again, I realized, wow, I was in her belly and she raised me. And she raised me with this mindset because she wasn't any better before. She had the same issues. She had the same trauma. It did not change. And I had to work on myself so much to get out of those mental issues, because I could have ended up the same way in the psychiatry unit, going insane of how I was treated as a child. And without this knowledge, I had no skill set to find my happiness in my life. But even more, my mother could curse. Sometimes she read cards, and sometimes she could feel things in advance. She could feel whenever I was feeling bad or I was in a danger from far. So she had these deep senses, but she was more like a witch. She used her power for bad. I was cursed. My father was cursed. Other people were cursed. And I could see that work. So I had to dig into energies, into spell, into what's bad eye, into how to deal with curses, how to clean yourself from negative energies for my own sake. And also because towards the end of her life, she was cursing a lot my father, and he would get sick. So I would go every week, every second week, to heal him and to give him enough energy to survive for another 1 or 2 weeks. Growing up with her, I had no sense of safety because I couldn't truly build a trust bond with her. There was no consistency between something's right or something's wrong. In one moment, she loved and adored me, and in another moment, she hated me, and I was the worst person, and everything was my fault. And I couldn't predict that. And this is why also I tried to save myself with developing my senses, trying to read her, trying to get the least hurt. So needless to say, this had a huge effect on my money, safety, and love issues. You can think about business, you can think about relationship, you can think about motherhood, you can think about finances, you can think about profession, friends, travel, whenever, wherever. From somewhere, I also inherited a deep sense of truth and justice, and this always got me out of the wrong ways. So, for example, there were several opportunities in my life to make money, to build success, but it never felt authentic. It never felt pure, and it felt like I do some other bullshit that would fool people so they would pay money and I would make the money. And I didn't want to involve myself into that, so I always wanted to give true value for the money that I received. And yes, this way it was much harder to make it. Coming from this family where I was never good enough, I was never truly recognized, especially that I took the spiritual path. I always had this very deep drive that I want to prove that I'm good enough, which made me become a perfectionist, which is very good on one hand because it pushes you to bring out your best, and I really appreciate that. But there's a sweet spot where you still find your own inner peace, and then that comes with a certain level of confidence where you can recognize yourself. Okay, now I feel like I made it. Now I feel like I can recognize myself. And if you look at my life example, there's a lot of perfectionism, there's a lot of pushing hard, but there was a lot of misery to get myself out from. So yeah, now as I see the clear map of myself, I understand where I come from, and this is why I can explain it all so much in detail. And I also worked it out. So I turned my trauma, my pain, my weaknesses into strength, into wisdom, into power, into love, and into wanting a better world. Working on myself helped me build a very deep connection with myself. But since I was very curious and exploring globally, I was trying to understand mainstream society. I was trying to understand the human, the traveling soul with the purpose, how you can put this all together, what is true, what is false. So gradually I understood the whole world. And many times I worked on global problems. Many times I worked on global energies. And this made me even more connected with the planet. And at one point, material things just lost their value. But still, there was my ego, my material human self, who pushed me towards achievements, towards success in the regular sense of the word. But there was this other part of me, the teacher, the spiritual being, who just wanted to make a difference at any price. So I made a lot of sacrifices, working on the planet, traveling a lot, not caring about the price and effect that has on my life. I was doing that a lot with my students, with my followers. We would do a lot of affirmations for global issues in the world. And at one point, I realized that I have to find the things that are selfless and selfish. So it's good for the people, it's good for the planet, and it's also good for me. And that's the situation where everybody's happy. I always kept asking myself, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? And I always went deeper and deeper. And why that? And why that? And why not that? And I tried many different things. But at the bottom of everything, I wanted always a better world. And that was what made me truly happy. If I saw people grow, that's what made me truly happy. As I observed the world and people, I could see a lot of type of people who deal with life differently. There are the people who live an average life, follow mainstream society, they have a home, they have kids, they have an average job, and it's okay. Everything is okay. They do what everybody else is doing. They have no desire to grow, no desire to achieve big goals, no desire to change lifestyle. They're just okay. Then there are the more astute and greedy people who want to achieve success, who want to make money, sometimes at any price, taking advantage of other people, taking advantage of the resources of the planet. But in the modern world, you can market anything and create a marketing message that would make everybody happy and still make people feel okay with what you're doing, and you can basically sell anything you want. And this is the sad thing about it. And these people mostly operate without soul, because doing business sometimes is a very soulless thing. So they don't care if they get their things done in the third world, if there's children who die, if there's people who are very poor and basically live off of nothing, but they make the profits and they make the money and they can show off that they are successful and rich and powerful. There are the people who do good things but less, and they tend to fool themselves more, and still they have this big ego, like, oh, I'm doing this and that's good and I'm doing that, but still they don't really push. They are just fine. And then there are the people who do more, who really try their best to make a difference, who really think deeply about what and why they are doing. And they want to create a better world. Humans basically are built for connection and love bond. We are meant to be social. We are made to connect with each other, and that's the most fulfilling thing we can have in this life. And that is destroyed, and we are alienated from others and from ourselves. This is why I think that the key is, first of all, connecting with yourself, and then connecting with others at a way different level. There are the people who are very possessive and they define themselves through their possession. And many times you see people and teachers brag about what they have earned, what house they live in, because they have this minority complex and because they are still proving to mainstream society. Otherwise, that thing doesn't have true value. And there's no true purpose in owning mansions, in owning 20 cars, in wasting your money on useless things instead of doing something that makes the world and humanity better. But still, these people are happy with superficial things. And what can I do about it? Along this path of deep self-analysis, self-work, studying the world, studying myself, working with people, I lost my sense of possession, which means that yes, I love to wear nice clothes. Yes, I love to travel. Yes, sometimes I love to enjoy life and afford nice things, but I'm fine with simple. For example, I'm happier to create an online training instead of going to a restaurant. But it's also because I've been to restaurants and I could afford it. So I really advise you to get over the basic needs affording that. I have traveled a lot, so there's no deep need of traveling. I lived in luxury apartment. I dated very special people. I achieved a lot of things. So I tried to make sure of the real values in everything. And even the shiniest stuff is empty, where there's no true purpose behind it. So yeah, I kept asking myself, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What is true purpose? And what I came to is something that you're supposed to do that's encoded in your soul, that is in complete alignment with you, with your best, with humanity, and with the planet. A lot of businesses, for example, create a lot of waste. A lot of businesses create a lot of damage, take advantage and abuse human labor, or abuse natural resources of the planet and still pack it up in a beautiful message that creates amazing sales and make the numbers skyrocket. And it would be all we can play on this big playground called planet Earth if we had a lot of time and resources, but it's just not endless. And we are too many, so soon we can destroy the whole planet. And we have to behave as adults. We have to think big. We have to take more responsibility. Even if there's less educated, less intelligent people, but still you can do your best to bring change on this planet. And when you're truly aligned with your mind, heart, and soul, with people, with the planet, then you will feel, you will know how to do it. But for that, you have to get rid of your fears. Because the path of the true purpose can be challenging. Your weaknesses are challenged. There's a lot of illusions that would take you away, a lot of distractions, a lot of temptation. You can get through listening to your soul and making your mind aligned with your soul, processing your fears, your doubts, your pain, your trauma, and the victim that I'm just a human. And most humans feel entitled to be selfish and do nothing. So basically, nowadays, it's okay to be a loser because as a loser, as an empty person, you spend more and it's fine. But if you follow your soul, if you challenge yourself, if you remove your fears, if you try out many things, you get closer and closer to who you are and what you truly want. That makes you truly fulfilled from inside. And then the world would also get a much, much better place.